Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, satellite imagery. No watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state. Really not much going on at all, and a change expected, though, with this system developing back here to the west, but otherwise high pressure dominating the Bering Sea once again, down across the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and even up to Kodiak Island, get into sunshine here with the drier northwest flow over the interior, especially southern interior. Temperatures pushing 70 again in some areas of south central Alaska this afternoon, and a little warmer up in the central and eastern interior with less cloudiness, although you can see some clouds scooting down from the northwest there into the mid-Tanana Valley, Fairbanks, and now entering the Alaska Range, and some cloudiness dropping in, mostly mid and high-level clouds coming onto the central Arctic coast. Low clouds fog this morning dissipated just about everywhere up there by afternoon, and this trough keeping some moisture actually produced a little bit of light rain over toward the eastern Arctic coast there around the Kaktovik area. Had some rainfall that's ended currently with that band shifting a little bit to the south, and the southeast coast drier over the northern areas and less windy in the Juneau area today, much less windy than the 50-60 mile per hour wind gusts had yesterday. Small craft advisory still out for Lynn Canal through tonight into tomorrow, though, for those northerly winds of at least 25 knots. Otherwise, showers here slowly tapering off, about over now for the Annette, Ketchikan areas, and over toward Hyder and Stewart with this system over the Queen Charlottes, and that'll continue to slowly weaken and push off to the southeast, although the shower threat won't end entirely over toward the Stewart and Hyder area. And rolling that again, you can see the entire system there not really moving at all, just kind of spinning on the Queen Charlottes, but drier air trying to come southward there, especially for Prince of Wales Island. And on the chart today, you can see considerable low clouds covering the Bering Sea, even in this imagery here, with not too bad fog-wise, though. Nothing serious at St. George or St. Paul in the Pribilofs there. Along the Alaska Peninsula, all the observations here, the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, all precipitation free, and fog not really much of a factor at all until you get up to St. Lawrence Island with this weak trough here. Quarter-mile visibility at Savunga and Gamble, some light rain or drizzle with the fog. Also had quarter-mile visibilities reported at Tin City, there with the same, more or less the same conditions, areas of fog into the Chukchi Sea. And the northwest coast had fog early on. That tend to burn off in the afternoon. Sunshine here over the interior. And again, temperatures pushing to near 70 degrees this afternoon. This is sitting in the valley around Squintna and Wasilla. And also down at Seward, near 70 this afternoon, about 68 at 3 p.m. Cooler, though, over at Valdez, one of the 72 you saw yesterday with less offshore flow. But sunshine here across the Copper River Basin, on down into the northern Panhandle. And then you pick up the clouds in the central Panhandle where showers really light and scattered, but still 1/100 of an inch of precipitation fell at Heidelberg, Wrangell, and as well as Cake and Petersburg. But the heavier amount was roughly about just 3/100 of an inch at Annette, so really light precipitation amounts. And those showers about over, and just leaving the clouds behind. Have a band of light precipitation here from the central Arctic coast eastward, kind of slipping southward of the east side there, but not before 1/1600 of an inch fell at Kaktovik earlier this morning. And for tonight, we'll see that frontal boundary stays down to the south here, well south, especially with the rain shield south of the Aleutians, and keeping the winds easterly, but not too strong there, although that may tend to change tomorrow We've got southwest flow, upper level ridge kind of weakening up here to the north and shifting eastward. That's going to allow that southwest flow to push stronger systems into the northwest coast out of those really weak troughs we've seen for the last several days. So this warm front will tend to increase the rain, fog, and drizzle tonight and expand it southward, possibly as far south as the Pribilofs. More likely, though, for Nunivak Island, definitely for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait once again, pushing in toward the Point Hope, Cape Lisburn area late tonight and tomorrow. Along with the winds picking up, you'll see small craft advisories return to the marine areas there on the west side. And this trough lingering with some lingering moisture along the eastern Arctic coast. That'll be quite light and mostly resulting in the low flying conditions. Variable clouds southward to the 40-mile country, mostly clear over the interior with light winds all the way down the Gulf of Alaska. Kodiak clear and mostly clear for the Panhandle, and showers over Dixon Entrance, pretty isolated there, so really not too bad. Now hold into tomorrow, still a risk, very slight chance there for Stewart and Hyder. Otherwise, maybe getting some sunshine into Craig, Klawock, and possibly even into Heidelberg. Definitely sunny skies back to the north. Southern Alaska, sunny, highs kind of rebounding a little bit. Back into possibly the lower to mid 70s to sit in the valley areas. Kodiak about the same, no change, sunshine all the way up into the central and eastern north slope. Maybe even some breaks there on the eastern Arctic coast. This slow moving system, that warm front edging eastward, and that'll bring some rain, possibly to the, excuse me, across the Selawik Valley, possibly the western Kobuk Valley, and into eastern Norton Sound there. But wet and windier tomorrow across the northwest part of the state and the western Arctic coast, with the cold front trailing back west of St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, high pressure edging eastward with the main center now just west-southwest of Nunivak Island, about 1,030 millibars. Certainly no change in the weather here will be noticed, but look for the winds to increase. Looks like gale force winds will come into the picture here with this frontal boundary finally trying to make a jog to the north there and expand its influence, take over the scene there for the central Aleutians. But it looks like the rain will stay to the south, but looking at gale force winds, minimum gales into the areas, the marine areas south of Adak and Atka. Otherwise, as I mentioned, sunny over the interior. And the outlook for Wednesday, some of that moisture comes eastward and then starts to slide southeastward with the upper flow once again turning northwesterly, high pressure holding here along the western interior. And so that's going to bring some clouds down, maybe some probably some showers into the White Mountain, central Tanana Valley. Could even see a general area of light rain there for the 40-mile country down to possibly Northway and Tok. Back up across the Eagle, that warm front to the eastern Arctic coast. That'll be the main rain area, the interior. Sunny for the Panhandle with this trough axis keeping a position that should hold any low clouds and fog off the coast there. And see a general increase in low clouds and fog for the Gulf of Alaska over what we saw, say, for today, which was mostly clear skies. But Kodiak, still that northwest flow, keeping it clear there and clear over the southwest interior. Variably cloudy, partly to mostly, probably mostly cloudy here with that flow coming around from the west and across the Seward Peninsula and along the northwest coast with areas of fog. And now finally a stronger frontal system here pushing in and north into the southwest Bering with wind and rain on the increase now for the Fox Islands, increasing rain in the afternoon for the Pribilofs, as well as maybe an increase in the winds, more or less a directional change, probably going east-southeast. Numerous showers behind the front over the western Aleutians. And the low temperatures for tonight, 20s here over the eastern interior, all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast, 30s central areas to mid-40s to near 50 in some areas over the west and northwest. And for the lows for the Panhandle, 45 to 53, and 30s, lower 40s, south central Alaska, upper 40s, Kodiak Island, near 50 in the Aleutians. And the highs tomorrow again, back into possibly in the mid-70s to sit in the valley, and lower 70s possible, breaking out even over the Kenai Peninsula, those normally warmer areas, mid to upper 60s, Bristol Bay, mid-60s into the Kuskokwim Valley, mid-50s back toward the coast and near 50 St. Lawrence Island, and 60s for the Panhandle, maybe mid to upper, and upper 50s for the Aleutians. Lows following morning, a little milder here. None of these plots, temperature plots below freezing again, except for Kaktovik at 31. Lows about the same for the Panhandle area, and in the 40s here in the west, lower 50s for the Aleutians with 51 on Alaska, 51 at Kodiak as well. And then the afternoon highs on Wednesday again, 65 to 75 south central Alaska, Sitnamanuska Valley, 65 to 70 Copper River Basin, and upper 50s to mid 60s for the southeast coast. And the Arctic coast ranging from 38 Kaktovik to 53 over at Point Lay.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, our first flying weather graphic for Tuesday morning showing about the same pattern we've seen since last week, with the marginal and IFR from the coast here across the Bering Sea and the Aleutians through the Bering Strait, and then hit and miss there along the Arctic coast tomorrow morning, central eastern Arctic coast. Also the north slopes of the eastern Brooks Range, otherwise VFR, into the Gulf of Alaska from the interior Kodiak eastward to the Panhandle. And then for the afternoon, no change in this pattern. Some marginal VFR there, south slopes of the Brooks Range in the east. VFR there from roughly Point Barrow eastward to Mackenzie Bay, and then some areas of IFR from just off the western Arctic coast, southward into eastern Norton Sound, the Lotto Hills, and then the solid IFR out here from about the Pribilofs down to the Aleutians and westward. VFR Kodiak, south central Alaska, and lots of sunshine. And for Wednesday morning, IFR now with the ridge retreating off to the southeast and breaking down, especially on the northern portion, allowing southwest flow in. That's pushing IFR right into the Seward Peninsula, south slopes of the Brooks Range along mountain areas, and some IFR central Arctic coast, as well as here to the southeast of the North Slope. And VFR holding here, trying to, but you can see marginal VFR across the Kuskokwim Valley to the western Alaska Range, Kodiak VFR, Bristol Bay VFR, Copper River Basin, mostly VFR, southeast coast, VFR. And in the afternoon, this area expands. You can see here we've got with northwest flow, so, and some moisture coming down with that initially pushes into the northwest here. So the areas north of the Alaska Range, marginal VFR developing throughout the day on down into the Wrangell Mountains, 40-mile country marginal. VFR south of the mountains, westward to Kuskokwim Bay, and lots of IFR just socked in over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, the Alaska Peninsula. VFR for the Panhandle. And for Anaktuvik for Anaktuvik VFR, but Adigan, some moisture there. I think it'll be just east of Anaktuvik. You'll see clouds, but not reaching the marginal threshold, although I think Adigan probably will at times tomorrow. Excuse me, and Lake Clark and Merrill staying VFR. VFR for rainy, VFR for windy, as well as Isabel. Another VFR day from Antasta and Tanita. Ceilings visibility is unlimited. Portage, same thing. And Chilkoot and White, good VFR. Freezing levels here, again, upper level ridge holding tomorrow through tonight and tomorrow. Actually not disappearing, it's just going to retreat, break down. We're 14,000 feet here out over the southern and southwest Bering Sea to the Aleutians, 12,000 feet all the way up to, north of Cape Lisburne. And then quite a gradient here, northerly jet pulling some colder air down out of the Arctic, 2,000 feet there, actually west of Kaktovik. So pretty good thermal gradient building here over the northeast part of the state. And as far as icing goes, I got a band of moisture here above about 9,000 feet with just some isolated moderate embedded in it, and probably just areas of light here to the south Norton Sound. Actually, that would even be up around 12,000 feet or above. So really icing isn't much of a factor at all for especially for smaller aircraft. And for the jet stream, here's that ridge starting to break down up in this portion here, but holding pretty good and actually kind of sliding southeastward. 130 knot jet breaking through around the top there, 70 knots, 60 to 70 here coming across south central Alaska, keeping the flow offshore and dry. And for 9,000 feet, northwest, west 10, turning northwest about 15. So pretty light winds. Eastern Arctic coast there, 25 knots. Light winds around the high center, and maybe 30 knots there around Adak. Otherwise, the stronger winds definitely south of the Aleutians. Light winds in the Panhandle, also at 3,000 feet. Could see some 25 knot winds there cutting across Dixon Entrance, but to the north 5 to 15. Very light for the Gulf of Alaska. Interior northerlies 5 to 10 to 15 knots. Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, 20 to 25 out in the Aleutians. big high again over the Bering Sea, continuing through tomorrow, so or at least into early tomorrow in the southern portion here, resulting in light winds and turbulence, occasional moderate chop here for the central Aleutians, and then maybe possibly in this zone here from St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait up to the northwest coast, roughly cutting off about Cape Lisburne. And and after the break, I will return with a look at the marine forecasts and some other interesting information.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
Okay.
Since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm's white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, it'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice?
Ah.
All three of these are white.
Right.
The snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud?
Right.
How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice?
Okay.
It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at.
Oh, okay.
Part of that's visible light, what we
Right.
see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back.
Okay.
And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that.
Okay.
And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful.
Oh,
And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble, and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
It'd be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum, but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Dehne. We can see the shadow of Dehne over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Dehne at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Again, not much change in close to the coast from Prudhoe Bay eastward there, and very close you can see over toward Kaktovik. This area pretty much unchanged for the last week or so. And then this area through here gradually getting thinner, and about that same trend expected for the next 4 or 5 days. Coastal water forecast northwest 10 to 15 down on the south coast with 4 to 5 foot seas. Northwest pick up a little bit here, become north and increase to 20 knots on the north coast, 4 foot seas. Still small craft advisories, northern Lynn Canal, northwest at 25, 5 foot seas. Down to 15 for Stevens Passage and light variable winds for Clarence Strait. Wednesday, northwest 15 there for Clarence Strait. Northerlies at 20 here for most of the coastline, extreme north coast, so light easterlies, and northwest 20 Lynn Canal become northerly for Stevens Passage. No seas no more than 4 feet. Prince William Sound, northwest 15, 3 foot seas, and for the North Gulf Coast, kind of still a variable wind, light wind pattern here with north to east on the directions. Speeds 10 knots, seas 4 feet, northwest 20 here for the Barren Islands. And Kamishak Bay, north 10, light winds for Cook Inlet tomorrow, slight seas. And that holds through Wednesday, except call it northwest at 10 here for the inlet, and northwest 20 for Kamishak Bay and the Barrens again. Northwest 10 for Prince William Sound, and west northwest to southwest for the North Gulf Coast, with only 10 knots and those seas running 5 feet. Kodiak Island, west winds 20 knots tomorrow, and also from that'll extend all the way to Castle Cape. And then for the Alaska Peninsula, west-southwest at 10 with 2 to 7 foot seas. Bristol Bay, west 15, 2 foot seas. Wednesday, Shelikof Strait, west of 15. Eastern marine zones on Kodiak Island, west at 20, west 15 for Shelikof Strait. And from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west winds at 20 knots. And then over to Cape Sarachev here on the Pacific side, south winds at 20, southeast 20 on the Bering Sea side, and light northwesterlies for Bristol Bay. For the Fox Islands, again on Alaska Island, east-northeast 15 to 20, and then small craft advisories here for Umak Island, 25 to 30 knot winds. And then we got some minimum gales, as I mentioned, south of the Adak-Atka area here, and small crafts to the north with 30 knot winds all the way out to about Kiska, at least small craft, and then 20 knots out of the east for the western zone. That'll turn northeast on Wednesday. Small craft advisories here from roughly Amchitka Island, 25 to 30 knots out of the east, become east-southeast at 30 knots from Mac Island to southeast 25 for Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, west-northwest, not too bad, 15 knots with seas at 2 feet, north winds at 10 for the Pribilof, southwest 20 for St. Matthew Island, on up to St. Lawrence Island, and Norton Sound about 15 knots. Those will become west and diminish to 10 knots on Wednesday. There, seas at about 3 feet. Otherwise, we've got southwest breeze there at 15 for St. Lawrence Island, and northeast now along the southwest coast, 10 to 15 knots, seas only at 2 feet, so staying pretty slight. Small craft advisories enter the forecast for the Pribilofs, east 25, seas building to 8 feet, otherwise southeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. Beaufort Sea Coast, we've got small craft advisories in all the zones there. East 25 here from Demarcation Point, and then it turns southeast for the Central Coast, turning southerly at 25 all the way down to Cape Thompson to Wales, southwest 25, 5 to 7 foot seas. And then for Wednesday, lighter winds in store for these areas here in the west, with from Wales to the Chukchi Sea at about 15, and then Wales to Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, southwest 10, and then gradually increasing Central Coast, small craft advisory still, west 25, 6 foot seas, and then 20 knots, start to get a little variable in the direction there, becoming southeast over to Demarcation Point. For tonight, starting to see the ridge breaking down, allowing southwest flow to push some more moisture, a little bit stronger systems instead of those weak troughs into the northern Bering Sea. So look for this to spread precipitation in, otherwise mostly clear over the interior and the panhandle with showers about over. And then for tomorrow, rain and more wind into the northwest than what we've seen for a while. High pressure holding over the southeast Bering. Winds on the increase with minimum gales for the central Aleutians, but the rain stays to the south. Sunny and warm, 60s to lower 70s again. So Sitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, sunshine for the panhandle. Dry conditions there continue through Wednesday. And moisture is slipping on down from the northwest here, especially over the eastern interior for clouds and possible precipitation. Otherwise, another sunny day for southern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.